Delegates at the ANC elective conference in East London are still in closed session. This is after the conference resumed after numerous delays. We are now joined by our reporter Mbali Thethani. Now, Mbali, before you speak to your guest Dakota Legoete, who is the ANC NEC deployee, what is the latest that is happening behind closed doors there in East London?
Well, Katlecha, I can tell you that, of course, just earlier on we saw this conference getting into a closed session. But I know that these delegates have now officially broken off and they've gone for lunch. And, of course, this is the third day of the ANC's Eastern Cape Elective Conference, which was expected to end off today. But, of course, it does continue. It will also then continue until tomorrow. But I know that the issues that here are at play is the issues around credentials. I know that they've been trying to deal with that for most of the morning, and they are still not done. But just to give us a bit more insight in terms of what was discussed in those closed sessions, we are now joined by NEC deployee, and his name is Dakota Legoete. Let's start off with the verification process. Earlier on today, we saw long queues coming out from the ICC. And of course, you did get into a different approach in terms of how your delegates will be walking in today. Because yesterday, a number of people had raised issues around ghost delegates. How did that verification process go?
Thank you very much. Indeed, this morning, each and every region was allowed to bring the master list of all delegates which were nominated from their BGMs. We took that list, took delegates one by one to verify whether these are the correct delegates and whether the registration and the accreditation process accredited and registered correct delegates. That was done this morning. We managed to establish that, and where there was an anomaly or discrepancy, we managed to intervene, and all those particular wrongly accredited delegates were taken off the master list, and we managed to proceed with the conference. Where we are now, it's where we are discussing the final report of the credentials. So the report is being debated by delegates. You know that in terms of the constitution of the ANC, a conference, it's a conference of delegates where they discuss policy, conference resolutions, and eventually come up with the elections of the leadership that will be given a mandate for the next term. So I must say and admit that the discussion and the debates are very serious, critical. There are issues which were raised, which some of them, because it's a closed session, I will not be at liberty to share with the media or the public until it's officially adopted. And all those issues which were raised, we have agreed now, because there is lunch, that the Credentials Committee must go and sit and clean up all issues that delegates have raised since from the morning related to our credentials report, be it where it's the allegations still of ghost delegates, there are allegations still of branches which were not there in the final verification report, but who has registered delegates, where the allegations of this and that. The credentials committees were talking. It's having a meeting to clean up all those particular issues against the verification report to see whether it tally, but also to verify against the master list of delegates to see whether the delegates which are inside conference are finally the correct one. So once that has been done, it will be brought back to plenary for delegates to further engage after the cleanup process has been done. And once it's finally done, then delegates on their own, through a conference resolution, will then move to adopt credentials. And once the credentials are adopted, seconded, and there's no objection, we'll immediately move into the nomination of the top 5 of the province and dissolve the current PPTT to allow the elections of the new leadership. And from there, once elections and voting are done, There are draft resolutions which have been done. We'll then break into commission to debate and discuss the way forward in terms of our policy discussion and input, which may take us even up until tomorrow, because today is clear that once we vote for the top 5, we can only vote for the additionals tomorrow, which it means the conference, like we planned before, will not end today. It's more likely to end tomorrow.
Mr. Legoete, one would say that when you talk about issues of conference, credentials are always a contentious issue, and it is the stumbling block for most conferences to get underway. And it's been clear with this one that it has also been a very difficult one, especially when you look at the disputes even going into this conference. Yesterday we saw that court matter as well, also dealing with the disputes. How imperative is this for you as the party to be dealing with these credentials, to also ensure that the leadership that is voted here is a legit leadership that will lead the Eastern Cape province?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I think our guidelines are clear. It's going to be important even for outstanding provinces to follow our guidelines. Let's conclude all processes and give a cooling off period of 7 to 14 days before we actually have a conference, so that we deal with all disputes, we deal with all outstanding matters, we deal with all logistics and all related matters, so that including pre-registration of delegates, it be done 2 weeks before the actual sitting of a conference, so that we clean everything before we get into a conference, so that by the time we get into a conference, we have a meeting of the minds in who's supposed to be in a conference and what is supposed to be done. Because the issue of the delegates, the issue of credentials is very critical, because it's a make or break of a conference, particularly a highly contested conference like this one of the Eastern Cape. And as the national leadership, we are here to support the province. We are here to ensure that this conference becomes a success, and that's why we are patient with delegates. We are patient with everybody in the conference, to an extent that we allow delegates to debate, to engage the processes until there is a meeting of the minds, because it's in our interest as the leadership of the ANC, it's in the interest of our movement in terms of our unity and renewal program, that this conference, we must assist the province to host a successful conference. It cannot collapse. There cannot be any chaos or anarchy. We are going to be patient, and that's what we are requesting even from the public and all other members of the ANC throughout the country. Allow delegates a space to engage on credentials, on policy matters, on all discussions, and allow them on their own to arrive at a decision, because we cannot afford, as the ANC, another reputational damage that one of our conferences could not proceed because we differ to an extent that we fought. That we cannot afford, and we are hell-bent as the leadership deployed here, that we are going to be patient.